So I'm Kate Morgan. I am here in rural Pennsylvania, in the Appalachian foothills, and the kind of crux of my reporting prior to now, but certainly over the next year, is all about Appalachia. There's I think I wrote in my application that there's no place so impacted by the social determinants of health, plagued by poverty, or ecologically wrung out in the name of progress as Appalachia. But it's also a remarkably resilient place. It's a place that is like crucially important for biodiversity conservation and as a climate refuge. I mean, right up there with like the Serengeti and the Amazon rainforest. Truly, it is ecologically that important a place. And there's a lot of resilience in the communities there as well. And so for me, it was kind of the perfect place to focus this year of solutions journalism and solutions reporting, because the problems are many and massive, but the solutions are also there. And in a lot of cases, the solutions come in the form of grassroots organizing and movements and people who actually live in these communities, who know what these communities need. They don't intend to leave. In a lot of cases, it's because they can't. But, also kind of right up there with they can't afford to leave. They don't want to leave. They want to fix the place where they are. There's a word in Appalachian culture, not just Appalachia, it's rural culture in general, but they use it a lot in Appalachia. And people will talk about the home place, and it's like one word. So the home place is physically a piece of property that in many cases a family has owned for like generations and generations. But it's also like way more meaningful than that, because there are a lot of families that don't actually live on the home place for one reason or another. It might be too close to a creek that now floods in a way that prevents livability, or any number of reasons. But the home place is still like an important aspect of who these people are. And so I don't know, that just kind of speaks to the like heart of the stories that I'm pursuing. And so I've got two that'll publish before the end of the year. So one also with the Guardian. I've got final edits submitted, and I'm expecting to see that live in the next week or two. And that's a story about flooding. There's a saying in Appalachia, sometimes when you say goodbye to an old timer, or you say, I'll see you later, or I'll see you again, they'll say, if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. And so flooding has been just a way of life in Appalachia forever. There are so many creeks and rivers and streams and tributaries, and just, the way that water flows in the mountains. Creeks rise. Sometimes it takes out roads, takes out bridges. Sometimes you wouldn't see your neighbor for, weeks to months. And that's where that saying comes from. But things are changing. Things have changed really considerably. Most of us are probably familiar with the really devastating flooding that happened in eastern Kentucky last summer that killed 40 people and just decimated a number of communities. So that flooding there are some really clear ties being made, both by researchers at the University of Kentucky and by the people who live in some of these, now former towns, that a lot of the most devastating floods happened in places that are below unreclaimed or poorly reclaimed strip mines. Maybe this seems obvious, but essentially, mining has changed the hydrology of this region in a way that is incredibly dangerous for the communities that are there, and getting more dangerous because climate change is drastically increasing annual precipitation in the Appalachians. So anyway, the story that I'm writing for the Guardian is about these communities working not only to hold the coal companies responsible for this risk and to stand up and say, I think there's a quote in that story that's like, the coal companies up until now have been operating under the belief that if us dumb hillbillies want to live below the strip mine, then that's a risk we're going to have to take. Essentially, the communities are standing up and saying, like, no, we were here first. But also, in terms of solutions, we can fix the hydrology. We can come in, and clean up what the coal companies have left behind. So that's Organizations, again, organizations that are headquartered in this region, going in with heavy equipment, tearing up that compacted ground, getting rid of those non-native grasses and sedges, and planting trees. None of it's fast. Forests grow slow, but the answers are there. I have another great story coming out that I'm really excited about. That one's for Vox. It's about acid mine drainage. If you're not familiar with acid mine drainage, basically the impact of coal doesn't end when the coal comes out of the ground. That's kind of just the beginning. What's left behind is some really toxic byproducts that leach into soil, leach into waterways, and kill pretty much everything they touch. So this isn't just a problem with strip mines. It's also a problem with underground mines, especially old underground mines, abandoned underground mines. In Eastern Ohio, this is probably one of the most extreme instances of acid mine drainage anywhere. But it's a place called the Sunday Creek. It's a tributary of the Hocking River. It's like 35 miles from the West Virginia border. I was just there a few weeks ago, and it's almost, even though it's like my job to do this, it's almost hard to put into words how unriverine this place is. A place that so obviously should be teeming with life is just dead. I mean, truly dead. The water is like this sickly acid ochre color. It is full of rust buildup. I mean, it's literally rust. It's iron oxide. And the water's so acidic that nothing, truly nothing, can survive. But there's a plan, because there's always a plan. So locals have figured out a way to distill that pollution into pigment. The United States uses like 300 million tons of iron oxide every year as paint and tints for like construction materials and makeup and any number of other things. And we buy most of it from overseas. A lot of it shipped in from China. Now we don't have to. We can get it from Appalachian streams. So that's a story for Vox. It should be out before the end of the week. So that's my update. Those are just the first in a slew of stories that I'm going to do this year. So far, so good.